but I must really say the quality of images had been fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I
Yes.
mean,
Some of them were very outstanding.
yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm sure both of you had a tough time
Yes,
judging them.
we spent like quite a bit of time yesterday evening after the testing, exchanging pictures and then trying to add and subtract. And
Yeah, and yeah, because I mean, when today in the afternoon I was trying to compile the pictures,
yeah,
I Harshul bhai told me to take at least 60 pictures. It was actually
Harshul
difficult
sir.
for me.
Yeah.
Some
Sir,
of the pictures were very good.
I have mailed you the comment wala link, sir. I have mailed it.
Right. What is
but
the
the-
username?
It is LBO, small letter LBO. Username and password both are LBO. LBO.
Okay.
so Harshul, just for housekeeping sake, like you will let's go over the full sequence again.
Yes.
Yeah. And how are we taking the Q&A? Will you be moderating the question and asking?
Somen and me. Somen will basically take all the questions from Facebook,
Fine.
and I'll take questions from.
Fine. So we will not be looking at the chat boxes or anything.
No. We'll just focus on.
Okay.
Your,
fine. Perfect.
Yes.
And most of the images, when you are declaring the first 6 or something, have mainly Shobit comment a bit on it because he understands them
you
the best.
All three, you Shobit, Dr. Shobit, you and Dr. Somnath need to comment on those. No?
Yeah.
Some of the images were very good, but the processing was lacking. Excellent images. Even one today I liked a lot, but it was what you sent later. But
So what we can do is maybe each of the
Rohit, Rahul.
So let's go over the sequence first.
What is the first sequence?
First, I'll just introduce about
LBO. Mute the audio.
Let's all mute.
Just a minute.
Let's all mute while one person is speaking.
Okay. So first, I'll just introduce about our LBO group, and then I'll introduce all of you as like the small introduction of all of you. And after that, I'll invite Dr. Manish for his presentation on like photography and what is his way of doing it and to inspire others. So after you finish, and then we'll just announce the 6 or 7 what we have finalized as the special mention photographs. No, all of you three will say a few words about the monochrome competition which was there. That what are the quality of competition and how the photographs were, and then I'll just stream the photographs, and you one by one you can speak about those photographs. That yes, these are very nice photographs and special mention photographs. These 7 photographs, and after that I'll invite Dr. Shobit, and by the time Somen can take questions or whatever they keep on coming. No, so Dr. Shobit will give his presentation. And after that, again, we'll have discussion, and then we'll announce the runners-up, 4 runners-up of the competition. And after that, Dr. Somnath will give his presentation, and after that, we can announce the winners. 6 winners we have, and after that, Somen will give his presentation on photo processing, editing, and a little bit about that. And then, it will be very informal kind, like you can keep on asking questions and people keep on asking questions. Somen keep on pitching in questions to all of you, and Somen will also pitch in his questions. So like that. Please unmute. Yeah.
How much time do we have, Harshal?
10 minutes.
There is no time limit.
We can approximately 10 minutes plus minus.
For the presentation?
Yes.
No, total, I'm saying total because...
Total, I think it's good if we finish up by 9 or maybe 9:15. No issues. Yeah.
9 is good.
Yeah, 9 is good. Yeah.
9:15.
Yeah.
So for my suggestion would be that because all of us speaking together sometimes may be a clutter. So you or Somen can Even where we are commenting on photos which you are showing, I would prefer if he directs one photo to one person,
Yes.
and
Yes,
if the other person has something
he
to
can,
add, they
of course,
can pitch
raise
in. But it's best if one person, otherwise a little bit of confusion may come up.
Manish, they can also pitch in when they are commenting on the other photo. They've been asked to comment.
Yeah.
They can have a take on the other photos.
There is also an option to raise hand. You know, if you go on
right,
mode,
right.
there is an option like see no.
Where does it come? आता है कहीं, मैंने भी देखा है पहले.
Participants.
Somewhere it does. There is.
Yeah. It's there.
Reaction.
Reaction is clap. Record, share screen, chat, participants. Okay.
How do you remove the reaction now?
Just click beside it. Just click.
Or you can just do like this. I'll understand. Yes, next.
Yeah. There is a thumbs up actually. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not going.
No, you click outside the box. It will go.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think it's 7:25. Beslin, can you hear me?
Bani?
Beslin. What? Okay, you should have told me. It's okay. So I'm sharing with Soman and all of you, your wall also.
So should we mute at the present further? Will be better.
Let me start sharing, then I'll start that. So, good evening, everybody. I welcome you all on behalf of our Facebook group, Life Beyond Ophthalmology, to this live photography workshop today, which we are going to have. And let me tell you in brief about this Facebook group. This Life Beyond Ophthalmology group was formed in December 2019. And in 3 months, we have more than 3,000 members who share their passion like singing, music, photography, painting, sports, writing, cooking, everything. And they all inspire each other to take up their passion, to the next level. So today we are going to have a photography workshop. We all know that a photograph is worth 1,000 words. Photography is an art of observation, and it has little to do with the things you see. And it has everything to do with the way you see them. Some photographers get excited about composition, and others geek on their technical skills. But all die-hard photographers share one thing in common, and that is passion for the art of creating photos. Every photographer discovers their passion in a different way. And today, we are honored to have some of the best photographers which Indian ophthalmology has. Today we have with us Dr. Manish Nagpal from Retina Foundation, Ahmedabad. We have Dr. Shobhit Chawla, who is from Lucknow. We all know Dr. Shobhit Chawla. We have Dr. Somdat Prasad from Calcutta. And we have Dr. Somen Mandal, again from Kolkata. So I'm sure that we are all going to have a very nice and interactive session today, which will be useful to enhance our skills of photography, and it will definitely make us a better photographer. So as you all know, we also had the monochrome photography competition in our LBO group, which is going on for last 7 days. So before we go on the talk of Dr. Manish, I'd like all the judges to speak a few words about the competition, and then we can start with the presentation of Dr. Manish.
Thank you.
Dr. Manish? Yeah, Dr. Shobhit.
No. Manish can start.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we had a tough time judging. We were just talking that when all the photos got collected, I mean, it was very difficult to choose because a very nice collection and also a very wide spectrum of photos, not just, different genres. It's monochrome, but still a very wide variety. There was like a wildlife inside and landscapes and a lot of lighting details. And we had a tough time to choose between these photos, and we spent a lot of time trying to debate which one should be the top 6 or the top 20 that finally came through. And it was an interesting experience to see so much talent which is there all around us at this stage. Shobhit.
Yeah.
I agree with Manish. It was indeed quite a bouquet. I would say it was a bouquet of monochrome, and we had quite an experience choosing the photographs. It was heartening to see some of the images really had that old-fashioned analog look, and it was excellent, even macros in monochrome, which we very rarely see. So it was overall a lovely experience. Enjoyed. Go ahead, son.
Harshul, you are muted. So.
Yeah. Dr. Somdat, would you like to comment before we start?
Actually, Manish and Shobhit did the judging. I saw a few of the pictures. Amazing, an amazing array of pictures. Actually, the pictures were very nice. The composition very nice. Some could have done with a bit of improved processing, and I'm sure Soman will enlighten us about that a bit later in the as the webinar goes.
Yes. Okay. So I think we can go ahead with Dr. Manish talk first. And
Yes, Harshul.
Yeah.
Should I start?
Yes, please.
So Harshul, once again, thank you very much for involving us in this wonderful activity. I mean, Life Beyond Ophthalmology, I've been seeing and watching since the time you founded it. And there's so much talent in so many different singing, somebody's painting, somebody's photography. I mean, all kinds of varieties, cooking too. And I think and especially this lockdown time, everything has just come up. Everybody is fully expressing their talents, and it's in a way been a very interesting time that all this has happened. So this is a photography based thing, and the idea was to have a monochrome photography competition, and it's tied up with this small workshop that we did, and we all the people here all share a passion of photography. Now, we don't belong to a very specific genre or something, and neither of us is a very technically trained person for photography. And it's more of a continuous passion which we've been exploring and just trying to make the best out of it. So for me, my specific passion in photography is wildlife and bird life and these. But of course, as photography goes, we all love visuals, and we all explore with all kind of genres. So today I would talk to you about my main passion, which is the wildlife based photography. And I call it second passion because the first passion remains retinal surgery. I mean, that's the foremost, and that's why I'm in the job. And if any of you has a first passion of a hobby, you should probably leave your job and do that. So I call it my second passion. So I'll talk to you a bit about the wildlife photography, and I'm sure all of you are cocooned in your houses, safe and sound, and watching all around you, so that things can get safer for us to come and meet each other in person at some point of time. But for the time being, please stay safe inside. And for me, the colors are very attractive. Monochrome is great. Colors have a different sense of a natural feel to them, and nature has so much to offer. And you can see the colors of the birds which are there all around us. And this is a masia which we had photographed in Malaysia. Som was there with me at that particular time. But on the other hand, one of the most colorful birds can also take a monochrome shape, and still it has a good visual. So photography is all about perspective. You cannot have one specific way of doing a thing. It cannot have one technical application. There are certain rules around which photography is built, but we all love to go beyond the rules, break them. So one doesn't follow a monotony. It's about what is the final outcome that comes out of it. And Harshul had told me to talk a bit about what kind of equipment I use to produce what kind of pictures. And this is typically my kit when I go out for wildlife photography. I have this big lens, 500 f4, and couple of camera bodies, 2 to 3. This is a 70-200. These are my classic go-to lenses for wildlife. This is the 500 f4. You can see the amount of size in relation to my dog here. These are heavy lenses because it's all glass, and I'll show you why we use these lenses, even though there are so many zoom lenses available which one could use, smaller, lighter, and they all can be used to take a picture. But then there are great advantages to using this kind of a glass that we use. And this is on field. This is the 500 f4 which I showed you, the bigger one on a beanbag here. This is 70-200, and this is a 16-35. All three have very specific purposes, and we carry all of them together. These are on the plains of Africa. Som took this picture for me, I think, on one of the days that we were out. And if you use the 500 zoom, and if the subject is like a tiger and is as close as this, you're basically looking at a portrait shot, or you capturing something very close to it. You want to see every hair, every whisker. You want the eyes to be right there in the center, and that's what we use these lenses for, to get really close to these mammals, that you can actually decipher every single detail in them. So there is a reason to these optical glass. It's like the microscope we use for surgery. Many people ask that why is microscope so expensive? But it's the optics, the glass that is put together in a certain way that raises the cost. It's heavy. It's a whole structure which is there built around them. But as you want to get away from a very close, tight shot, and you want to express a behavior shot of an animal, then I switch to the 70-200, which has more flexibility for me to show the whole animal, mammal, and also take a bit of the landscape around. So here you can see that the tiger looks, I could go and zoom into the face, but here I like the perspective of it standing, looking with a bit of a foliage all around me. So I need a slightly wider frame. So I need the other lens for it. The 500 would just take me straight into the eyes of the tiger. This is another example. There are these 3 subadult cubs that we were photographing last year, and we could see them, and we took a lot of different shots of them close up. But then there's a different perspective where you go wide and take a landscape shot, which tells you the whole feel of the forest, the landscape in which they are there. They're relaxing, 2 of them here, 1 here, there's a water body here. So you get a whole perspective, and that's why you need all these lenses handy. So what we do is we keep that whole bag ready, and we just keep shifting very quickly based on what we are seeing into these. And once again, the tiger forms an amazing monochrome subject. It's got such well delineated the shapes, the whole colors to it, the contrast to it, that it makes an amazing animal or a mammal for taking monochrome or converting to a monochrome shot. But of course, you have these very interesting lights. Some would remember this from last year in December, in the winters, early morning winter sun, and we saw this lovely tigress arrowhead, the queen of Ranthambore at present, and we got a glimpse of her just staring out from this foliage. We were following her, and then she came out with a kill to our luck, as we would recollect at that particular time. So there's nothing more beautiful than seeing a wild animal like a tiger in the wild natural habitat, doing its behavioral things that it's best at. And these are the optical qualities that you can get from the lenses that we use, because they are wide apertures, all glass, from which you can get these kind of details. And mind you, in wildlife, if the whole animal is well focused, but if the eye is defocused, you lose the shot. It doesn't have much value. So the eye has to be always in very good focus. So when we are taking pictures, we are always making sure we follow the central point of focus on the eye of the subject, and it's always moving, and one has to be constantly moving with the eyes, because no matter what else you have in focus or not, but the eye, if it is defocused, the image doesn't look very good. This was similarly an action shot in Africa, a hyena going after a wildebeest. And these kind of action shots are again possible to get a good clarity if you use these prime lenses. In others, the aperture is not good enough to capture very good details in them at that. These are from, again, action shots from Kamchatka in Russia that we went to. Shobhan and I had gone last year to the far east of Russia, a beautiful landscape in which the bears are catching salmons, and it's a feast. There is hundreds, thousands of salmons coming in. These bears are jumping in all around, and you can see a whole array of bears, one after the other, catching salmon. This is a mother with 3 cubs, precariously balanced here. They're trying to avoid the water and learning. They've come out for the first time out of hibernation. So to capture a portrait shot like this, without any other subject in this. So it's a mixture of using the right frame, the compositions to give you a perspective so that you can give it importance. While here, the whole feel of the bear would have diluted it, but it's the importance is getting close up to their the faces. You want to see the hair, the water. There is a fight going on, and you want to see every detail clearly. Or a slightly zoomed out shot where you're seeing a perspective of a landscape and the way the water is splashing. So you have to constantly switch lenses based on the whole picture that you finally are visualizing in front of you. And these are all action shots. You miss it by a few seconds, you miss the shot. So there's a lot of patience required. We constantly keep things focused, expecting action, anticipating action, ready for the shots most of the time. And then when you want a close up, you see the eye of the salmon has to be is focused here along with the bears in that, and then the water, the action shows through in these kind of shots. So again, these are possible to capture details like these are possible with these optically good quality wide good aperture lenses which are there. And once again, to show the perspective, you have a lioness drinking with a cub, and you want to see a nice picture of a close-up, but then there's a different feel to seeing the whole frame. So I switch from my 500 to a 70-200, zoom out, take the whole perspective of the activity there. Or if there are these birds, this is a 500 lens that we use. and constantly keep waiting for action to happen. And you can see that each has a bee in its mouth, one is flipping over, and you want to take shots such that you capture a feel of the action. Or an eagle coming, flying off, taking off. Again, we wait for sometimes half an hour, sometimes when we have a bird in view, so that we can capture it as it takes off. And that's when you get the full beauty of its colors, wings, expanse. And so many times we just wait there and it flies off and we've missed the shot. And we wait for that one time where we can get that clear shot of taking off when these birds are taking off, because that's when the whole wingspan is seen, the action is seen, and is important. This is an interesting bee eater again. You saw the green one. This is a carmine bee eater we saw in Botswana. Again, Som was with me, and we were taking these shots, and we have this interesting phenomenon. The male had caught a bee, and to attract the female, it called the female and showed her the bee. They shared the bee, gave it to her, and this is what he got in return right after that. So these things can come up with patience and of course luck, that you keep waiting there. Don't just see a subject and leave that as soon as you've taken one or few photos. You expect a certain behavior and you wait for it to show up. And this, of course, again, a kingfisher has caught a fish, and to eat it, it needs to thaw it. And this is how it's trying to thaw, by hitting it. So at times you switch on to your video mode, which is there to capture the essence of, because this is action you cannot express in a single photo. You have to see this. It's a really humorous thing of how it is, ferociously it is splashing the fish just to make it softer. And then we come to landscape. I showed you the bears with the action shots, and this is a wide field. This is with a Leica with a 35mm lens, which of course Shobit loves these lenses, and I've learned a lot from him to use the landscape-based shots which are there. So when you have a landscape like this, there is a volcano at the backdrop. There are a few bears. This bear has eaten too much and is sleeping. This bear is here. So you get a whole feel of the landscape which is there. And here, if you close into this bear, it won't make much of a photo. But if you see the whole landscape, you get a different feel to it. Or something like this, where the clouds have descended and almost forming a roof, and you get a feel of how these bears are looking after the salmons under this whole thing. And of course, you can eventually process it to give you a monochrome feel sometimes to it, which can have a totally different character than a color could give at times. So those are things which you have to experiment and see eventually. But main thing is to visualize the shot, and the composition is important. The bear is walking towards this side. You can't have the bear in the center of the frame. You need to put it on the right side, so that if it's walking on the left, the viewer's eyes, it is much more pleasing to see something like that. The subject is on the other side. This is a fish eagle. Again, a close-up view of a fish eagle, which is looking nice in a good light. But this gives you a full landscape or the whole habitat of this fish eagle. There's a water body. It's looking for fish from a vantage point and the backdrop. So you need both. You need all kinds of perspectives when you have. And of course, light is important. You don't always use light which is falling right on the subject, which is classic. But at times you want to use side light, backlight to especially in the golden hours, morning light, evening light. You have this beautiful light which comes, and you definitely have to use it in every form, the way it falls on an animal there. And the perspective here, you have a giraffe, you have this lioness here. If I want, I would lower the aperture and try to focus both of them. But I prefer this feel where you can make out a giraffe there. So you want a very wide aperture, which is focusing on this while telling you the whole perspective that there is a giraffe there, and the whole perspective is there. So when we talk of equipment, the other thing is a tripod. Quickly, I'll go through this. That if you are walking and doing birding and taking shots, you need a tripod, because these heavy lenses you cannot handhold and click because of the weight. You cannot do that. So often use a tripod, but if you're on the Jeep, of course, we just use a bean bag. And many of you would have seen this picture of Som in the Jeep. I sometimes use his head to balance when I can't find the right spot on the beanbag. I just immediately tell him to be still and use his head to focus. And a binocular is useful for birding, but sometimes when you're looking at a bird far, the bird itself comes and sits next to you, and you wonder how that happened. So you have when you are in the wild, you'll have so many different incidences, experiences to share with when these kind of things happen in front of you. So I just wanted to express in little my equipment with examples of some of the photos in this limited time. I didn't go into very technical details, and we'll have a lot of nice talks after this. And it's wonderful to be with all of you. Till we meet again, be safe, stay inside, be vigilant in the lockdown, and stay safe. Thank you very much.
Wow, what a wonderful, what an awesome presentation. I mean, most of the basics of photography, like framing, like light, like colors and monochromes, within this very short time, Dr. Manish has touched them all. Beautiful.
Thank you very much.
And I think one very important message is about the timing, which is, I think, very crucial in wildlife photography, and patience.
Yes.
So, yeah, so many times you feel that, yes, you missed that shot. So that moment has to be yours. Otherwise, you always...
yeah, for every photo that I show you, I must have missed 50 such shots, or we aim for trying to get this shot. We still have to we have some bucket list of shots. So many times that, oh, leopard on this, doing this. We still have to do that. So it's like we are out so much, but still we still wait for those certain shots we have visuals in our mind, but you never see them all the time.
There has been a few questions already. Dr.
Before the questions, if I can just clarify, because Manish was saying it probably wasn't clear to the audience that we switch lenses all the time. Actually, when you're out in the wild, you probably have two bodies, one with your longest prime and one with the 72. You're not changing lenses in the wild.
Yeah, that's when I showed you those three photos, the three lenses on the field, that they're all with different bodies. Yeah.
That's how it works.
Yeah, and especially in the outdoors, while you are doing wildlife, if you keep on changing your lenses with one body, then your sensor is gone.
Yes, your dust will go in.
Yes. So you never do that.
Yeah. And you don't have the time anyway to do.
Exactly. Now, just before taking a photo, do you think whether this is destined to be a monochrome or a color, Dr. Manish, or you think it later on? Think about it later.
I shoot in color only. I don't go to monochrome and shoot. There are monochrome cameras also now for landscape specific ones, but I don't do that. I shoot always in color. The monochrome perspective is only while I'm processing that I kind of then also do an alternative monochrome and see that what it looks and how it appeals to me, and then I would keep some in monochrome and some in color.
So carrying it forward for a beginner, while, say, for example, processing, what would you see to determine whether this is going to be monochrome or whether you are thinking about it in color? Usually wildlife would be in color. So what are the characteristics of your image that would determine that you might experiment with the monochrome option?
Well, you need a subject with a good contrast. Black and whites need contrast. See, sometimes a lot of subjects are camouflaged, they're ready and all those, so they may not make great frames for monochrome. But if you have a nice landscape with the subject making a good contrast, they would form. Or like a tiger I showed you, a peacock. They have so many patterns of different shades of which can convert into different shades of gray technically. So if you see a good contrast, and then with the processing, you can enhance that contrast to get. I mean, you will obviously be talking about some thing to do with that. But I always shoot in color and only look at the monochrome part while processing. And one more thing I would mention is that we always shoot in RAW. So once you're shooting in RAW, which is the original large file, you can during processing get the best of monochrome as well as color output from that without losing anything.
Right. And there had been another question. What are if there are two lenses that you would feel that everybody should take with for wildlife photography, which two lenses would you advise?
Well, my go-to lenses are the 500 f4 and the 70-200. If you take these two, they're fine. And a third one optionally should be a landscape lens. If you can carry that, of course, fantastic. 16-35 or 35 mm
Fair
or
enough.
something,
Yeah,
which will
yeah.
give you an option to take a landscape mode. But the most essential are those two, 500 and 70-200.
70-200.
Yeah, but somebody
Okay.
who doesn't want to spend so much or carry so much weight and is not interested in, say, a print quality image, or who can carry, there are a lot of cameras with a zoom capability, which is 70-600 or 70-800, or which would also have reasonably good pictures. Of course, they may look good on social media, but if you take a print, they may not be that good. But one doesn't always have to carry heavy equipment if one enjoys going to the wildlife.
Right. Well, thanks again, Dr. Manish.
Thank
Yes,
you.
Dr. Harshul.
Yeah, I think it's a time to announce few special mention whose photographs judges liked very much. Those are not winners and runner-up, but those photographs stood out of all the lot. So I'll be sharing the photographs and the names along with that, and Dr. Manish and Dr. Shobit can simultaneously comment on those photographs. So this is the photograph by Swamir Sawant. This is the picture of Albert Hall of Jaipur.
Well,
Yeah,
this
Dr.
is
Shobit?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Well, it's got a timing with the pigeons in the foreground, a good depth of field, and the sky is rather nice, dotted with a few of the birds. It's overall a nice picture, I would say. So that's what is striking about.
You know what it could, just a quick comment that what would make it a winner would be Somen would add to it. If suppose you take this picture into a Lightroom and reduce the highlights of the sky and get more visual out of it, and then give a little more contrast, it would have a different charm to it.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So this is another photograph from Raghuraj Hegre. Yeah, Dr. Shobit.
What I liked about this photograph was it's a very unique close-up. I wouldn't say it's exactly macro. Could be something between a close-up and macro. And the texture, the texture is very beautiful. That is what is striking. And the diagonal and horizontal and the vertical lines give it a different feel. It just strikes you initially when you look at it, you feel as if you're looking at some fish skin or something, and then you realize so it draws you into a conclusion.
Yes. This is from Dr. Nitin Balakrishnan. Dr. Manish, yeah.
Yeah, this one has the geometry basically, which is, you have an angle and you have the whole geometry, which creates a false sense of dynamism to the whole picture. And that's what makes it very interesting for me.
Yeah. And the next one, this is from Dr. Mritika Sen.
It's a nice example of frame and in the texture of the bricks, the variable.
Yeah.
So those are the two interesting points. And of course, the reflection, which is broken in one part, then, adds to it.
Yes. There's another one from Dr. Kshitij Raizada. And there is another one from Dr. Praveen Jain. Yeah.
Yes, so this one has a lot of character. a silhouette form of action which is there. It could have formed a winner if the silhouette was still more enhanced, where you don't see it here. Again, it's a question of processing. You could make the characters really dark, and then the focus should be still sharper on the characters. It would make it a winner. But the whole concept of the whole picture was fantastic.
Yeah. And this, I'm sorry, this is from Dr. Praveen Jain. This was from Dr. Rajneesh Chand. Yeah. So this is from Praveen Jain. Yeah.
This is a very beautiful headshot. It's technically very strong.
Yeah.
And he has cut the right amount of the forehead to give it a more powerful a look. It's a very good image. Only the fingers are highlighted a bit too much. The highlights could be less with some. I wish, it's always good to practice these frames and then choose the best one, or and then use it. Som,
Som, comment. You had a comment on this.
No, this is a lovely picture. It's beautiful. This guy throwing his net out. The only compositional issue here is this has been cut off, which slightly spoils the picture. But anyway, it's a great frame. But what runs through all these frames, what we have seen till now, is very nice. Is very nice composition, very nice focusing. But where they fall down is don't fall down, but maybe if you go weak, is that they haven't been processed quite well.
Yeah.
Ansel Adams, the most famous landscape photographer ever we know of, used to take one negative and spend one day in the dark room, processing it differently and getting it. In those days, there wasn't a computer. But even now, you have to spend time processing. You can't just take the shot and use the JPEG and throw it. That is where you lose out. That is where Manish's photos stand out, and these photos they also stand out, but they're slightly behind.
I would like to add something to it, that basically all the processing, which is where, as you said, is highly required, which brings out the best in the highlights and the shadows, and that's where I think the whole detail comes through. And Somen would, of course, talk more about it, but that's what is most important for these photos. And a lot of people think that we use Photoshop, that means that we are adulterating the photo or adding something, but that's not true. One could use Photoshop for that also, but technically Photoshop is like what Som said, that in the analog time, people used to spend time in the dark room to do that. So today's dark room with digital images is Photoshop. Lightroom or Adobe or whatever. That's what you need to use. So you have to always shoot, preferably in RAW, and then spend some time on each photo to get the best out of it. And one should not feel that, if you are editing on a Photoshop means that you are enhancing it. You're not. You're actually normalizing the image. As somebody, one of the photographers who was telling us this, said in a nice way, that what you do with this is normalize. This is how you actually visualize the image. And in the RAW, you feel that, the light suddenly has become too high in this and too dark here, and you are just trying to balance it as how you saw it.
I agree. Actually, there is a feeling amongst my photographic friends and other people that probably if I'm using Photoshop, I am diluting the experience.
Yes.
I'm actually doing something impure to the experience. It's actually not so. Actually, what we since, say, for example, last 10, 20 years, and even before that, during the analog times, you don't take a photo, you make a photo. Actually, you make a photograph, and what you collect from your camera is the raw image, and unless and until you prepare it nicely, your job is not complete. So it's nothing about getting impure, it's nothing about diluting your experience of photography. It's just that you're preparing your photo and yourself for something better.
Yeah, very nice. So I think now move on to Dr. Shobhit Chawla for his presentation. We all know Dr. Shobit is a great vitreoretinal surgeon, as well as a great chef, as well as a amazing photographer. So, Dr. Shobit Chawla.
Just go to the beginning of the presentation. How do I do that?
Just go to slideshow and say start from beginning.
Okay. So from where Manish left us, I work with very different equipment mostly. My only big lens comes out when I go to around to have some fun with Manish and Som to a wildlife park or a safari or something. So I basically like using these small prime lenses on a body. Now I use a A7R4. Earlier I used to use a A7 R2 body. So this is a manual camera. It's a Leica, but you get a Fuji also, which is the equivalent. And I like using either a 35 mm or a 15 mm and sometimes a 50 mm lens. This is I use a 85 mm prime lens for tight landscapes and an 18 millimeter one for very wide ones. And a 135 is something new in my armamentarium, which I'm going to now experiment with. So overall, it has been a journey of joy, and it was incited by basically my love for light and shadows. So let's see. I would like to take you through a journey of light and composition. So for me, a good image is what makes the eye wander and then narrow down on a point of interest. A sunset image from Lucknow, and this white mosque stands out. Similarly, the wildebeest are behind here, but what catches you is the zebra and their reflections. So it makes your eye wonder and then come. So this is a very classic example of rule of 9 in composition. If we divide this into 9 squares, one subject is here, which is giving this front of a church a very mystic look. It was a perfect image for monochrome because this building was golden in color and this lady was wearing black. So I thought the contrast, as Manish also mentioned, it was a very beautiful experience. But rules are meant to be broken. And once you start breaking rules, you develop new style of your own. And that is what photography is about. The palette is different. The canvas is different for every photographer. That's what I feel. And you build your own style. This is in Dubrovnik, the place of Game of Thrones. This is a different perspective. This is coming down a cable car and the sun is setting in the far perspective and in the horizon, and I got the lovely, look of these islands, almost a dreamy look. And I let this highlight be there to give it a, look of as if it's going into absolute horizon and vanishing into it. Again, if you look, this is a wide shot taken with a 28 mm lens. I did not stick to the rule of 3 and divide my interest, but I left this huge negative space on top. And I wanted to highlight this double rainbow. This is in Tanzania and in the Tutu National Park. And I think this composition, which I learned from a friend called Sachin, who's a wildlife photographer coach, and changed my perspective on recomposing my landscapes to a large. So leaving negative space, here we have left a nice expanse of negative space that gives this tree, acacia tree, a different look. The gradations in the grass and the horizon a different look, and gives a great image, which is different, doesn't stick to rules, and gives a large negative space. Many times in composition, there is a great role of leading lines. As you see, anybody can photograph a beach, but this is a different perspective. The leading lines lead to the subject here and there. And while doing the leading lines, taking a little low perspective gives a nice pastel look, pastel sketch look to the sand. Similarly, the leading lines of the cobblestone in this island of Hvar town square in Croatia gave it a nice golden look, and you're able to get this interesting image. So many times you use light and shadows also as leading lines. This is coming out of a railway station in Italy. My friend was climbing ahead to me. What caught me striking were these shadows, but I waited. I held myself a moment. I wanted his feet in the top image, and this gave me a very interesting perspective. The second photograph is again leading lines. Thanks to Manish, he took me to this place. It's a palace in Dungarpur, now a resort. And this veranda has a great feel. And the pattern leads you to a door and gives an intense image of where the leading lines may create a composition for you. Another example where you use light as a leading path. So this is just behind my house. This is the Residency, a 18th century monument, which was the residence of the British during the mutiny and the siege of Awadh. So instead of taking the full tree, so the lovely light was filtering there, I cut that to the minimum and I let this light lead into this path, at the same time giving a beautiful look to the top of these benches. So it's all about the feel you want to create. Again, this is in Versailles, in the palace. There was light filtering from in the gallery outside from one side, and this lovely ripple of light which was going back and then breaking into a geometric pattern gave me a different uniqueness why I wanted to capture this image. And that became a leading line along with the tiles which were there. So these are all arts of composition, and as you develop more, as you experiment more, you develop your own style. Juxtaposition is a way to tell a story. Here, a setting sun juxtaposed on the back of this camel with the camel keeper in front tells a story of sunset and gives a lovely image. The day has come to an end and they are going back home. Another image of a small historic town about 60, 70 miles from Prague. It's called Kutna Hora. There is a church there, and these lamps are very characteristic of the Czech Republic. So I combined the setting sun painting this golden orange along with this, and this itself identifies the place, the location. So these are all tools by which you compose. Along with that, use light. As we all know, depth of field. Now, I enjoy doing street photography. And one of the things I like to play with in street photography a lot is the depth of field, where you want to get the whole environment and show the activities which are going on. You use a huge depth of field. You could use f8, f10. But when you want to isolate a subject like this lady, Maasai lady in Ngorongoro crater area, I wanted to isolate her. And there was lovely light. So again taken in the later part of the evening, around 5:36. And I could isolate her well with the head of the baby she's carrying, showing back. Similar, another guy in Strasbourg, in the Black Forest area between France and Germany. I loved his tattoos and his macho looking look, the cigarette and the cap. So again, I took this as F2 because it had a very confusing background behind it. It was an open market actually. It was a village market. So blending elements can also create an image. Here, it was a beautiful staircase. This boy was slowly moving up it. The colors were the striking point and the dilapidated look. All combined, the chairs, the colors, and when you blend these elements, you get an image. I would have isolated anything in this, the image would have been flat. Here, the image is a blend. Just like a lovely cocktail, it's a blend of colors, quality, and image. Another technique which we enjoy in composition is filling up the frame. This I learned myself. I used to love going to vintage car rallies and photographing the cars, but there were so many people around them that it was impossible to take full photograph of a car. So I started experimenting. Why not take the vintage elements and make them stand out? So this was actually became quite a hit with the Vintage Club of Lucknow. And for 3 years, they have published their annual calendar with these photographs I've done for them. And they love these tight, filling the frame images. Foreground and depth, along with light, has a beautiful interplay. When you put an interesting subject like this in Spiti, there was drama playing with the sun setting and lighting up this foreground mountain into a golden color. But I used F11 and I wanted this depth of field. I wanted that going back image so that it contrasts beautifully and everything is in focus. So this was what was my feeling and my technique in taking this image. Another image taken with Som and Manish in good times earlier this year in Jaisalmer, and you have the dune in the foreground, and that with a good depth of field blends. This is again taken with a manual camera with I think it's a 35 lens, a manual lens, and I could control everything. So that's what was the idea. A low perspective, like I showed you that scene of the beach, another low perspective taken at a beach in Goa, gives a very extraterrestrial look to this simple sandy beach with a little bit of tide in the morning coming and giving a little bit of foam. So that creates a little artistic an image. So again, breaking a rule. At times we talk, like Manish showed you an example where the bear was going from one side, it was asymmetric. Most of our compositions are like that. But many times the power of symmetry tends to take over. Now this image is symmetrically asymmetric. If you look, it's a symmetrical architecture. The light at the right point in a symmetric manner, one bench which is asymmetric, and two people at various. This is a subway station, Gloucester Street in London, which I found very interesting. And I took this image with a point and shoot Leica Q camera and a 28 mm. Similar image, again a subway image. Here also the power of symmetry comes beautifully, geometric lines and symmetry. You see, what incited me into this image was the reflection, interesting reflection of light on this brass, as Som would have seen many times in the London subway. You have these brass covered staircases, and they gave a beautiful shine. So that's what incited, and then I decided to convert it to monochrome. This is the Montreal Museum, and the bus just paused for a second, and I found this very eye-catching, the color of the marble, the lovely 4 paintings on the canvas in front, announcing what exhibition was on. and this lovely image of this fiber, a sculpture of fiber glass in front. So foreground relief with symmetry creates a lovely dimension. It gives a three-dimensional image with a uniqueness. Here, the unique point was that the gray marble is beautifully contrasting with the image. Another one image, this was an experiment not only for me, for Manish also. Both of us were in an absolutely abandoned museum in Prague. And this is a frame within a frame. So we took this is a skylight on top, and this is the staircase of the museum. We literally lay down under this and took this image. This is a balance of an incomplete frame that has its own beauty. These are two different focal lengths, same place. This is at sunset, and this is at midday. The top is the below one is with a 28 mm lens, and the top one is with an 85 mm lens on a tripod, but from a distance of nearly 500 meters away, and then cropped. So both same places, different perspectives because of the lens. So there in composition, there is a interesting power of diagonals and triangles. The power of light is always there. This is the setting sun in Orcha. Here again, the little glistening of the light on the rocks leads us to the image of the centaurs in the distance. We can use light in various ways in our composition. An off-center composition, concentrating shadows and these in an equal manner. Now, this is an image of Juhu Beach sitting at the hotel lawn with my son. I bracketed the shot so that I could get these strong rays. And again, a manual exposure, but in manual exposure also mode, you can bracket. Selective manual exposure again. I expose for these rays coming out into Broadway. Image from my hotel room. Composition and gradation from here, the image is underexposed and there it is overexposed. That itself can give a very artistic and surrealistic feel to images. Creating harmony, two images again, both purple in color at the beginning of an alley, give a harmony, and then the depth leads to that. Starbursts are fun to create, and you can always create them by using a low ISO setting, aperture like 16 or 22, and placing the sun at a corner in one of these images, and that gives a lot of clarity. This is what I liked about that image in the competition also. When you cut off about 1/5 to 1/6 of the forehead, you get a more powerful image in a portrait. This is taken at the Lucknow race course. This guy was seeing where he had put his money winning, and I couldn't help catching this expression. Another last example of depth of field, and this is a salsa class going on. So in this wine glass and this flower in front, and I went ahead and did it so that the feeling of salsa comes and the image. Thank you. I hope there is a change in your perspective and thinking with this small.
Wow.
Amazing.
Amazing. That was an excellent tutorial class actually on composition. And your play of light and shadow was nothing short of poetry.
Well, I talked to a few people who sent me WhatsApp messages. He let it be a little more tutorial. So I thought Manish was beautiful wildlife images. Let me go a little more,
and I think that photo, which was of the stairs, which had frame in frame. I think I never seen that kind of photographs. There are a lot of
the same one we both took.
Yes.
And
yes.
we were shoot out of that place.
Yeah, we had a great time.
Photography is not allowed.
Amazing. So I think there are a lot of questions. Let's take a few questions before we proceed further, because we want them to be answered. There is question from Ankush Agnihotri. He's a very active member of LBO, and he also does very nice photography. So he's asking, does the panel always take pictures on manual when it comes to focusing? And then many people have asked Dr. Rahul Navalkar and Dr. Ankush that how far do you think that the iPhone photography or the mobile photography have reached? So there are two questions. Yeah.
So I like to manual because I'm not doing wildlife, but when I'm doing wildlife, which Manish also does, many times he's on, he will answer that question for you, what mode he uses, but I like to shoot manual. And I'm not much of a fan of HDR images that much. So I like to take the best image. So I do many times I bracket when the light situation is confusing. A one stop under or a 0.75 stop or even a 0.3, depending on under and over, depending on the situation. And I like to really use manual mode. It gives me a lot of pleasure because it's taking photograph and creating, it's almost like painting from the scratch.
Well,
Manish can answer
yeah.
that.
Well, Ankush, I call him the drone man. He's very good with drones. He's asked the question. So I've gone with Ankush to Tadoba. We've done a few trips together there, and he's the tiger man there. Well, your question about what mode to use, I always use aperture priority, whether it's wildlife or it's landscape. But in landscape, I prefer to, if I have a good subject, of the landscapes are usually still subjects, so I would most of the times do HDR. HDR means that you have bracketed shots. You've done a setting where you take three shots together. One has the exposure that you have set, the other has an exposure which is one stop below, and the third is an exposure one stop or whatever. You can adjust those plus and minus, and then eventually while processing you can mix them and get the best out of three. So you have highlights and shadows, and all three mix and give you the best output. So HDR is great for landscape, but as far as wildlife is concerned, aperture is very what I found with experience, aperture is very good, because with aperture you have very few settings to change. You can set your aperture to 2.84, 7.1, whatever. There are 4 or 5 settings that you move on to, and you can choose based on what feel you need. If you're on shutter priority for action, you have too many options to choose from, and in wildlife you don't have much time to think. So you're better off. Aperture priority works best for most wildlife-based shots.
Can
Dr.
I just
Somdat?
interrupt for a second?
Yes.
Before Som gives his opinion. When you're doing street photography, that is very much to like what akin to what Manish said. But there, if also you want to use manual, you can. But it's better to be in that environment and do a few test shots before you start doing your manual. You could decide on a f5. 4.5 or f8 as per what you want, and then do a ISO of about 200, and then do your shutter speed and do a couple of manual tests and then go ahead. Now, so
I think the question was about manual focus or autofocus. Shobit is manual focus because he uses a Leica. That has its own advantages because it's small, it's discreet. So for street photography, you have small lenses which are high quality. The moment you make them autofocus, they become big. So he has his point there. But with what Manish does and what I do a lot of time for wildlife, you cannot do manual focus. It doesn't work. Sometimes you have to. When the light is fading in the autofocus is hunting, then you just have to do a bit of adjustment. So it depends on the type of kit you carry and the type of thing you do. But I think there's no harm in using automatic mode as long as you understand what that automatic mode is doing. Everything doesn't have to be manual. That's a myth which photographers carry. I have to do everything manually. No, I'm an aperture priority. I'm an auto ISO when I'm out in the field, doing wildlife. Okay. So the only thing I have to change then is to think of what aperture I'll change and what focus point I'll choose. And because I don't have time for more than that. So the eagle is flying towards you. You can't do more than that. So it depends on the situation and what equipment you use and what style of photography you do.
I think the other question was about phone photography. And I think it's totally a valid thing, because what we are talking about is a more technical aspect, using a higher quality equipment, because we want to get these very high big files which we like to see the details and other things. But all these things cannot be used on, say, a street or on you're randomly moving. So phones become the most accessible cameras with you all the time. If you want to capture a moment suddenly on the spur, they are the best things, and for landscapes and all. But you cannot do high-end wildlife photography or something using a phone. Well, you can capture a tiger moving, or you can capture something just for the feel of it, or for a posterity for storing. But then, if you want detail, you will need better equipment for that. But for streets, landscapes, I think the phones are getting so much better and they're always there with you when you want to use them.
One question from Som and Manish I would like to ask for the benefit of the viewers. If you were to choose a good phone camera today at a reasonable budget, what would be your first choice? Because you guys have experimented a lot with that. So I want to know your final opinion and verdict.
What your reasonable budget is?
Well, for a smartphone, or not the Apple budget, but the Apple budget or 60% of it.
Either the Apple, the Apple X or the Huawei P30 Pro. But we're talking 80,000 rupees in that kind of range. You want to go more affordable? There are Oppo phones which are very good and get very close, and that will drop the price to half. So it depends on. That's why I asked, what is your budget before I.
Just before we move on, there was just another question which I felt was interesting. What aperture do you generally use, Dr. Shobhit, while doing landscapes? Is there any rule of thumb?
No, I like to, normally my landscapes have a lot of depth, because many times I put a flower or something in far.
So it should be on the higher side, right?
On the higher side. It's mostly varies between f12 to even f18.
Is there any Lakshman Rekha, like you'll never go below 8, f8?
No, if the light is poor, I would use f8 also, and
Right.
I back up my ISO to 600 or 800 for a landscape if it's worth it and light is failing.
Right.
So there is one more interesting question to all three of you. Dr. Rajat Jain has asked that, do you take your wife and kids along on all these photography expeditions? So his wife, Dr. Neha Jain, she has asked him, no? She's very curious, yeah.
Unless your wife is interested in photography, if you're going on a general family tour and you can still spend some time on photography, which we've all done. Some of the pictures Shobhit was showing, we were all with our families there in Jaisalmer, and we could still do some photography. But on dedicated wildlife tours, my daughter will suddenly say, and now daddy is going to take 300 pictures. So,
so one way to get around it, which I found in my personal life to be it had been very useful, was buy another camera, give it to your wife, and let her have that passion. So after some time, you will find that you are not having any problems.
That's just what my partner, Dr. Desi, has done.
There is another question from Dr. Praveen. He has asked that, how do we handle airport issues with multiple lenses? He always had trouble with multiple lenses and cameras. So,
well, I showed you the bag. There's a cabin size. You have to look for a cabin size luggage where you fit in all your equipment together. My weight usually on that carry-on of the camera equipment is about 13 kgs. And most airlines don't allow anything above 7. So you have this cabin luggage. When you look at it, it looks like a nondescript, a light thing. But if they tell you to put it on the weighing scale, it's 13. So then you have to say this is camera equipment, and there is no way I'm going to check it in. So then usually the next step would be that the airline staff will say, I'll have to call my manager. We said, okay, call them. Then the manager comes and he fusses. Then he says, no, of course, they will not, nobody will take it for check-in. So they will finally allow you. You just have to fight every time.
I would just like to add that one very important point with expensive lenses is, if you're going overseas, you have to download a form, list them at home,
Oh, that's for customs for
the
abroad.
numbers and just hand it over to the custom while booking.
Yeah, that is for customs.
Otherwise, it
Yeah,
can be a problem, especially with a 500 lens or a
yeah,
Leica
yeah.
lens.
Okay, so
And,
let's go on to the to announce the runners-up of the our monochrome photography competition. So I'll be sharing the 4 participants who are runner-up, and the judges can tell something about what they liked in their photograph. Okay, so this is the one of the runner-up, Dr. Suhas Sarvade. He's an amazing painter also. Last week we had live painting workshop on this platform. Yeah, Dr. Manish.
Yeah, so see, this is a monochrome perspective in a wildlife, and as I was telling you, that for us, we understand when pictures like these are taken, it takes a lot of patience, and you sit there and wait for this to happen, and so we can totally relate to this thing. And then he's decided to convert it to monochrome and has given a very nice kind of a poetic feel to this whole thing, which is what I liked. The eye could have been a little more sharper, of course. I mean, when you're looking at critically, but on the whole, this is a poetic feel, and it's almost making it like an art form instead of just talking about it as a single picture, which is well focused or
Yeah.
critically. So that's what is it's a fluid in motion kind of this thing.
No, it's
Yeah.
actually very nice. The eye is sharp, the wings are slightly blurred, giving you this idea of motion, which is what you really want. So it's actually a brilliant picture, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the another one, this
Shobhit?
is from Dr. Tomal Roy Sarkar.
Well, this has a very classic look. The focus of the eye is off center, and the color of the sclera makes it all the more ominous. And the color of the hair also, it's beautifully processed. And I think it's a very outstanding image because of the character of the person who has been photographed, the facial features, and I think it's a lovely image. That's what I
Yes.
found striking, especially the eye.
Yes.
So that was
And here's another one from Dr. Samita Mulani.
Well, I think she's the one who's the model here, if I'm correct.
now, this is a good image because of the foreground. Again, the model in the foreground and the twirling skirt. Overall, it becomes a lyrical image
Yes.
from a dead image of just a monument.
Yes. And here is another one from Dr. Harshini Rajula. This is also runner-up.
Shobhit has a very nice take on this image.
I
Yeah.
really like this image, and in fact, Manish did not like the haze at one, but I felt it added to it. That the foreground
Yeah.
is sharp, and then it fades into, and
Yeah.
this must be the morning haze, or it could be maybe it was a burning pyre at one end on the ghat, the smoke of which was. So overall, it's a great atmosphere shot, as I would label it. It's Varanasi,
Yeah.
I think, the ghats, and I really like this image. For me, it is a really nice image and deserves a runner-up.
Yeah. So those were the 4 runners-up in this monochrome photography competition. So thank you very much, judges. Now, Somin, before we move on, do you have anything to add here? Can you unmute yourself, Somin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was another very interesting question I would like to share with you. That does anyone have to get a consent as far as people in street photography is concerned, especially when you're planning to not keeping the collection? Even before that, just yeah, I mean, because when we are actually out there, do we always take a permission to take the photo? And if we take the permission, then the dilemma is it gets artificial. The expressions get artificial. So how to
Well,
Well, Leica users have this thing called the hip shot. Okay, there's a hip shot where you kind of keep the aperture. You keep at f10 or f15, f16 or something, so that you get a much better range. and then you kind of place it on your hip and quietly keep clicking. You have a certain visual in mind, so the other person doesn't realize that you're actually taking the shot. Yeah, Shobit.
So candid photography, as it is called on the street, most countries it is fine and appreciated. There are certain countries where it can be a problem. One of my winning images, I took a painter who was painting in the square in Montmartre. I had to sit at a cafe because when I tried to take her image, ready to break my camera in my head. Sat at a cafe across, and I used a medium range 85 lens, and I became so many Middle Eastern countries you're not allowed to do image of any person on. So there are rules which vary, but candid photography has been for ages, and it has stood the test of time. And most countries, there is no issue.
I think we
Fine.
have to cultural issues, like if you're in the Middle East, you can't photograph people. If you're in England, you have to be very careful. People will, get against you. I took a photograph. I was just trying out a new camera at a very high ISO, Manchester Airport. Posted it on our doctors forum there, and somebody said, "Did you take permission?" I said, "No." Then somebody else said, "Well, they were out there sitting drinking in a public place. Why do you need permission? They are sitting there publicly. There's not gone into the home or used a very long lens to take a paparazzi side." So, but even then, there's sensitivities involved. So, actually, there is no clear answer.
Okay. So now, yeah, I think now we move on to Dr. Somdat Prasad. His way of taking photographs and his experience.
One second while I get this going.
Yeah, he's sharing. Yeah.
Okay, now I'm going to lower the tone a bit. Manish and Shobit have given you an extravaganza of what can be done and what cannot be done. I have deliberately chosen pictures to show where I can make a point about technique, which the beginning photographer can apply. It's not somebody who has to have fancy equipment. The beginning photographer can apply. Before I go further, I would suggest that, we have all been showing kit, 500 lenses, this, that, whatever, Leicas, whatever, these cost a fortune. Most people would buy a DSLR or a Micro Four Thirds or a Fuji or whatever with the kit lens, which is what you get with it, which is a 15, 80 zoom or whatever. The cheapest next lens to buy is a 50mm 1.8 or a 50mm 1.4 if you can afford. So for beginning photographers, because that gives you a prime with a wide aperture, and that will get you shots which your zoom will not get. So I'm just aiming this talk at sort of beginners rather than the sophisticated people on the panel who know all about this anyway. So looking at just look at this picture, normal picture, nothing great about it. But the idea about it is that look at the foreground. The foreground is the late afternoon sun. This is Vienna. The foreground is the late afternoon sun on all these nicely red rooftop buildings. The midground is the Vlata, the river sweeping around with the bridges across it. The background is where the shadows start around there, and because the clouds have come in. So whenever you're taking a picture, think of foreground, midground, and background. And that is how you compose. The rule of thirds, rule of nines, all that is later. But in the beginning, think that is my foreground empty. I know Shobit showed very nice areas of leaving negatives. But normally, this is the way you think. What's in the foreground? What's in the midground? What's in the background? I'm just going to try and cover 4 very practical topics, which every sort of beginning photographer will want to do. One, they want to do portraits of their wife, of their children, of their nieces, nephews, whatever. And then there's the golden hour and the blue hour, which is the time to go out photography. If you go out on the street, if you're on a family holiday, you can steal 1 hour because everybody has sleep. In the golden hour, go out and take your picture. Or the blue hour. And then pet photography, because like Manish has 2 pet dogs. I have 1. So we like taking pictures of pets. So this is a bit basic. This guy was actually smoking something. Shobit and me were coming back from Kumbh Mela and can't remember where it was exactly. We stopped next to a coffee house. Shobit will tell you where it is. And I liked it. This is, a portrait with shallow depth of field. As you can see, the background is blurred, but all his wrinkles are clear. He's not opening his eyes, so I can't get his eyes in focus. And you can, and that is clear. So you have to choose the aperture to try and keep what you want in focus, but everything else out of focus. This is my daughter. This is a 75 millimeter 1.4 lens. And I've deliberately kept her eyes in focus, as you can, as you can see, the eyes are absolutely glistening, but everything else is soft. And that is a tip for people. If you want to photograph your girlfriend, your wife, your daughter, or whatever, keep it soft. Don't go for ultimate sharpness, because softness gives a nice sheen to the skin, but keep the eyes sharp. So you opened the aperture to 1.4, but as you can see, her hands are blurred. The rest of her body is slightly blurred, soft, but her hair is between sharp and blurred. So this is, and I've changed it to monochrome. Actually, this was taken on a monochrome camera because monochrome has a timeless look. 50 years later, if I look at this picture, it will still give me memories which a color photo might not. But it's the way to use the depth of field, which is what I'm trying to emphasize there. This is from 2004. This is the first DSLR I ever owned. This is in Sherwood Forest in Nottingham. And this girl was playing on the piano. Again, the same kind of principle. Couldn't get her eyes in focus because she was looking at what she was playing, so she wouldn't look at me. And she was doing a thing. I couldn't say anything. But you keep the background blurred, keep as the rest in focus, and you get a reasonable composition. But generally, people say if she's looking that way, you should have more space there, which is right. But for portraits, I think you can go for the center if everything else is fine. This is an old guy in Lucknow near Rumi Darwaza. I think Shobit was out that morning with us, or maybe Rajat was. One of the Manish definitely was. He's made his sail for the morning as he's reclining. Again, this is taken with a monochrome camera, so there's no color in it. And I thought I'd give it a sepia tint to make it look old world, which is what it's supposed to look like. Again, what I wanted is all these, the bristles in sharp focus, these things in sharp focus. The rest can be maybe not in so sharp a focus, because it's what draws your eye to the image. And the best way of learning this is when you're watching a movie. Watch that. They use depth of field very creatively. They will the hero will come into focus, and then the focus will move to the lady behind her. That is where you get this idea of use of depth of field very easily. I'm just trying to make some practical examples of what to do. Now, what to do differently? We have this is from Vienna, but the normal one is Buckingham Palace, and there are the guards standing there, and everybody's photographing them. Normally, they're taking front-on shots, whatever. But you have to come back with a different photo. You don't have to come back with the same photo which everybody took. So instead of photographing him from the front, I went to the side. I took this picture from the side, and you can see that those buildings, they are out of focus, whatever, but they are the dancing buildings of Vienna, which are quite well known. So anybody who's been to Vienna will identify it, but it's a different photo from what most people would have taken. And that is the point I wanted to make. You have to look for an angle which is slightly different. Because usually when we are traveling, we are going to places which are, there are thousands of people, all our friends have been there, everybody's been there. You have to try and find a different angle. Portraits, then we move on to portraits. Portraits, this is an animal, we carry on portraits. This is an animal portrait, not the best picture. I shouldn't have cut that ear there. That was a mistake. But what you have is the eyes are sharp in focus enough so that you can even see the blood vessels on the iris. That's the type of sharpness which Manish's 500 f4 or my Nikon lens will give you. If you want that kind of photography, then you have to invest in that kind of equipment and carry the weight around. And you can sometimes cut them off. You can all make out there's a tiger. I've cut out the top, I've cut out the bottom, breaking all the rules of composition. But it actually looks quite nice. The eyes again are in very sharp focus. You can have iris recognition from that if you want. And I've broken all the rules, but it looks nice to me. So don't be worried about breaking rules or not breaking rules. That's okay. But what is nice? The other thing is always try to be at the level of, you can't always do it. This was by chance rather than planning, but try to be at the eye level of the subject, whatever it is, human being, animal, bird, whatever. This eagle just took off. We were on a jeep slightly on a higher ground. Manish will remember in Tadoba, I think Shobit was there. And this guy took off. We were on higher ground. So it was like he was flying directly towards us. So you can see the eyes are in focus. The wings are slightly out of focus. Deliberately have not upped the shutter speed to freeze everything because I want this sense of motion. As long as the eyes are in focus, it makes the image. That's okay. Now again, breaking the rules. Normally, for this kind of photograph, you would have upped the exposure a bit to bring out detail, but I actually downed the exposure. I've reduced the exposure because I wanted this play of light and these little bristles to come out. This was in Tadova when we were getting bored because the tigers weren't coming out, as Manish will remember. Again, we all go to safari, we take pictures of elephants and we come back, elephants, lions, zebras, whatever. But I wanted a different image. So this guy deliberately created a silhouette. So he's standing in the Chobe River. I don't really want any detail in the elephant. I've lowered the exposure, but this is all the sun glistening off the water. And it gives you a different idea. So always think laterally, think of, this is the average picture where the average tourist will take. I want to take a different picture. And then you have to try and, think of how you're going to get that different picture. Then we move on to the golden hour, this early morning light, which is half an hour before sunrise to half an hour after sunrise. It is beautiful. This is, I think, Beda, this was, Manish and we were there waiting for the leopards to come out, who showed for a fleeting 5 seconds. But when you're sitting there getting bored, you take pictures of other things. So this guy was a nice model and the light was just beautiful. The light is just golden and the yellow flowers in the background are all blurred. There's this twig which is blurred, which I could have processed out and I should probably process out. But that is the beauty of the golden hour. The light is beautiful. So get up early in the morning, leave your wife and daughter and son to sleep, come back when you do that. Another one in the golden hour, this is from Africa. This is a secretary bird taking off against the sun. You can see the spray, the water dots flying. And it's just a lovely shot. And it's just that we happened to be out very early when everybody else was having breakfast. We were already out in the jeep, way into the wild. So that is when you get these shots. So these are when you don't go without family, because you get out and you stay out all day. But anyway, this is from Bali. Now again, golden hour, early in the morning, sun just rising. Now, how did I capture this image of this net going out? We actually had paid this guy. Sometimes when you go out, it's good to get a guide or get a prop, and a prop is a human prop, or might be a camel or camel with a camel on. Because you would tell them, go and walk there just against the sun, and I'll take your picture now. So this guy, we kept telling him, no, cast your net. Oh, I didn't get the right shot. Cast it again. I didn't get the right shot. Cast it again, and then I got the right shot. So sometimes, what you see is not what was happening. But that's still a nice image. Doesn't matter if I made him go there and do it. So sometimes when you go out on these things, it's worth making that extra effort, finding a good guide and getting some props. If you go to Rajasthan, you want a lady in a colorful dress who you can say, go and sit there or go and sit there. And then you will get a picture which you otherwise wouldn't get, which would be blank. Sometimes you just take shots which are not artistic, but carry a message. You can use them in your presentations and things like that. Little details. Sometimes capture this somewhere in East Europe. I can't remember where. Again, from the golden hour to the blue hour, which is when the sun sets, half an hour before sunset to about 1 hour after sunset. Now, when you're taking a sunset, you always must have something in the foreground. Otherwise, if this tree wasn't here, this would have been a boring shot. But because this tree, this is Masai Mara, you can see that flattened tree. Because this tree is there, the shot looks interesting. Nowadays, you have tilting screens, so you can lower your camera and take it from low. In the old days, people who had taught me photography say, lie down, find a piece of dead wood, and then focus the sun behind it. And then you will get an interesting sunset shot. Otherwise, you'll get just an average touristy sunset shot, which nobody will be interested in. This is a shot close to my home in England. Again, a sunset shot, very small aperture. I think it was f16 or f18, which is why these rays, as Shobit was saying, these rays, not very pronounced, but you can see these rays coming out. And I asked my wife to go and stand there. Why? Because once you put a human in the picture, in a landscape, it gives you a sense of scale. So if you have a lovely landscape, if you can make somebody stand at a strategic position, then it gives you a sense of scale which enriches the photograph. Otherwise, it would diminish the photograph. It would just be another tourist shot. This is another one. This is just, I like the colors. This is from Moremi, I think, in Botswana. The colors were just so beautiful that it had to be taken. That's not the point. Again, the blue are in the city because the lights come on just as the sun sets. So you can get these, you can get reflections in the water and all sorts of shots which you wouldn't. And after that, it becomes too dark to take these shots. So there we are. So that's the blue R. And while Manish was photographing his bears in Kamchatka, I took this landscape, which is, which has layers after layers. There's the water, there's the sand, there's the green vegetation, there's the foothills, there's the clouds, there's the mountain behind, and the darker thing. So it, again, from foreground to background, we're looking at that. So just keep these things in mind when you're composing. What is in the foreground, what is in the midground, what is in the background. It helps your composition. This is just an incidental one. This is Nellis Air Force Base in Vegas, not in Vegas, outside Vegas. Everybody was busy photographing the planes flying. I was walking around the park planes, and I saw this guy who had a picture of a wolf drawn on his tail wing. Made a nice shot. Anyway, this one Manish has already shown you, so I was hoping I wouldn't duplicate any shots with him, but there we are. Now, lastly, pet photography. That's my dog, Sky. 2 or 3 things to do about pet photography. One, get to their level. She is not, I'm twice as tall as her. So I have to kneel down to get shots like this, because then she is at my level. The eye is sharp. She just come out of the sea, so everything is wet, but everything is in focus. Now, when you're dealing with animals, dogs and pets will sometimes sit down when you tell them and pose for you, but sometimes they will not. They're frisky. So be on burst mode. You're taking 8 pictures a second. Later on, you will bin out of your 50 shots you took, you will keep only 2, because those will be the 2 good shots. Because they are moving around, they're frisky. Somewhere the eye will not be in focus. This will not be in focus. Some composition will not be right. But we still want pictures of them because they are pets. They are like family members. And then put in people who are important to you and your pet. That's my daughter. Once she's got her hand on her head, then she will sit still, and then I can get that shot. And lastly, give them their favorite toy. This is Sky in the Sea. Give them the favorite toy, which is a ball, which my wife was throwing into the water, and she was picking it up, swimming into the sea, coming back, and I was actually up to my sort of waist in the sea because I wanted to get at eye level to get the picture. If I had taken it from where I was standing up on the sand outside, then it would be a top-down shot, which wouldn't have looked that good. So those are some things. And don't use flash when you're using, when you're photographing pets. Flash irritates them. I hardly use flash, but flash has its own place, and artificial lighting has its own place. But I'm a more a nature guy, so I just use whatever light is available. So there were just some practical tips for you guys to think about, and the people who are starting, the people who are advanced know all this. The people who are starting, there's some sort of basic things to think about to improve your photography. So life is like a camera. You focus on what is important, which is usually the eye when you're taking humans or mammals or whatever. You capture the good times. If it doesn't work, you go back and do it again. And every time you go, you improve. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Somdat. Those were some stunning photographs, I would say. Somen?
Yes, considering the vastness of the topic, Dr. Somdat has discussed it so simply and so lucidly, I must say. There had been a few questions now. Now, any tips of clicking flowers and related?
Flowers, you
Subject in itself.
flowers, depending on the size of the flower, you probably best off with a macro lens if you have one, or a long telephoto and then from a distance. You adjust the depth of field. You might want the stamens only in focus and the petals out of focus. It's up to you. It's an artistic choice. You make your choice. Or you might want everything in focus, then you lower the aperture. But flowers just by themselves are a bit
Yeah,
not.
but probably with a say 105 macro, when you go really in the macro mode, then you will be finding some interesting patterns.
You need a bee humming around it or something to make it.
Yeah, right.
So, in my opinion, there are two ways to do flower photography. One, what Som is saying. Another point of interest is that you can create beautiful abstract images. I'll post a few in Life Beyond Ophthalmology so that people can see. You basically use a macro lens with a very low depth of field. You focus at one time, and behind the bokeh becomes a very beautiful fading colors. So that is one way, and I've learned a lot from a pediatrician who's on Facebook, Pushpinder Singh. His art, flower photography is something amazing on his page. They are without a macro lens.
And this is one area where phone photography is quite good as well. Most phones can do reasonably good macro photography nowadays.
I'll post a few examples in a couple of days.
Yeah. So I think let's go to the winners of the monochrome photography competition. And I'll share the screen with all of you, and judges can just comment. So we have 6 winners for this monochrome photography competition. And here are the winners. So this is the first photograph by Dr. Shubha RK. Dr. Manish?
Yeah, this is very interestingly done. This is the Humayun's tomb, one of my favorite places to go and take some nice pictures as well. So I know the feel of this place, and this has been done in a very arty form, using this sphere and capturing a perspective, and then showing the inverted perspective. So it's an art form of photography.
Yeah, Dr. Shobit?
The elements which Manish says, it's more an art form. Though if you look at it as a monochrome image, it does not have that great contrast and that great lines and tones of contrast, but overall the feel of the image and the effort and with the accuracy on the technical way is a very beautiful image. The reflection is there, the lovely mirror image in the, I think it's a glass sphere.
Yes.
So it's a very interesting.
Yes. Yeah. So this is the second winner. This is from Dr. Salim Mupen. Actually, he had very interesting photographs which he submitted. Dr. Manish, can you?
Well, this is an absolutely stunner. I mean, this is the kind of photography I love. The dynamicity of, just showing all the birds coming all around you, and the whole landscape becomes totally dynamic. So, I mean, this is a perfect feel of the atmosphere that's there. I love it.
Yeah. Okay, congratulations. So, and this is from Dr. Sachin Malandur.
I would like to talk about this photograph.
Yes, Dr.
I found striking was a little analog a look. If you use a old Ilford 400, this is the kind of feel you used to get. And this interesting light from the cloud formation is coming. So it's not like a complete ray, it's a blur. The road going into oblivion. It's got very interesting elements. So as a person, I would have cropped this image from below a little bit more. And maybe reduce the highlights in the sky just a tiny bit, 10%. Otherwise, it's a beautiful image. I love the look
Yes.
of the, mud on this track also. I would love to know the location. It's a beautiful image. Looks like
Yes. Yes. So let's go on to the next winner, and this is from Dr. Arvind MJ.
So
Yeah, Doctor.
Absolutely a very nice image. Yeah, the composition is right. The people on the camels are on the left, walking to the right, and then the sharp contrast with the ridges of the mountain behind. This is absolutely nothing to add, really.
Tom, what do you feel if the riders had been left alone and the the guy who's holding the camel is removed from this image? Would it become more powerful?
It would be more powerful, but I think you have to do with what you have.
yeah,
And what it looks like is this is not posed. This was something spontaneous taken.
Yeah.
Probably
I mean,
there's a bend otherwhere, and this.
since you mentioned Shobit, the best would be just the first camel only, the one behind as well as the guy who's in front. If they were not there, this would be the perfect shot.
What I liked nice was this blurred sand in the background and this strong leading light here, and then melting into
Yeah,
contrast here.
Yes.
But we could lessen this portion to about a smaller part. I feel.
Very nice. And this is from Dr. Samir P. Sawant.
fantastic. I love it. Again, the monochrome. This is a classic model for a monochrome image,
Yeah.
and bang
It's a
on.
demonstration image.
Nice portrait shot with the animal looking right into you, and the whole zebra has its own feel with the depth of focus. So perfect in every way.
Yes.
I think
Good composition.
this image actually answers that question which somebody had asked before, that which photo can go in wildlife, which photo can go towards monochrome and which
Yes.
towards color.
Yeah.
Zebras and elephants, I think.
Yeah.
Actually, Somin, it's for people. I don't know what's depends on what software you use. In Lightroom, all you do is hit V, and it changes it to monochrome. You can have a quick look whether you like it or not. Or you
Yeah.
It's non-destructive editing, so your original picture is always
Right.
there.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Quick, you just quickly hit V. If you like the black and white look, you work on that. If you don't like the monochrome look, then you go back to you.
Yeah. Very true.
And then we have the sixth winner, Dr. Somen Mandal. It's
Again, a fantastic,
amazing photograph. This is
dynamic image. Fantastic. With all the spray, this is the feel I would love.
Yeah, but the bullocks are sharp.
I've seen a similar image as the winner in a very big competition as the first winner.
Where was this photo taken, Somen?
This was, first of all, that was a surprise. I didn't know that it was going to be a winner. This was taken in the rural Bengal. This is actually, this takes place every year in villages in 24 Parganas South. This event is called Muichhara. So this bullock race goes on during the rainy, just before the rainy season starts. Every year it takes place.
Okay. And this is another from Somen,
Oh,
I
beauty.
think.
This is fantastic.
It's stunning, yeah.
This looks like a studio image.
Yeah, it is.
Right,
It is
it
a
is.
studio
Yeah,
image. Yeah, it is a studio image. Yes.
Fantastic.
Right.
You used one single strobe for it or LED lighting?
There were two lights. One strobe was on my right side, and there was a small dimension light a little behind. So this dimension of the cap was given here by that.
Okay.
So basically,
Yeah. Wow. So
I really like this image.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is also from Soman. So
I love this image.
Yes.
yeah. So we have our 6 winners of monochrome photography competition. And so thank you so very much to Dr. Shobit, Dr. Manish for judging for us. And now I think we move on to Dr. Somen, who will explain us about the processing of the photograph in quickly in Photoshop. And afterwards, we can have a full 1 hour session of Somen and Dr. Somdat also on our LBO group, so that they can teach us how to do the processing of the photograph, which is required to improve the quality. So, Dr. Somen, with his presentation.
Yeah, I know it's already 9:15. I'll have to be as fast as possible.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we have crossed almost 2,000 viewers in Facebook and on our Weblink platform. It's very well taken up by all the audience. So, Somen, please go ahead.
Yeah. So I
Quickly
will.
tell us that how to.
Yeah.
yeah.
I will, there are a couple of things. I've not made any PowerPoint presentation because since I have to.
No, we want you to show it live. You know how do you.
Right. That's exactly why. Two things for editing a desktop is preferable to a laptop. Number one, if you have to have a laptop, or if laptop is the only device that you have, then you should use a mouse, not the pad. And number two is always shoot in raw if you want to have a serious image, if you want to edit seriously. Otherwise, if it's just for Insta or social media, you can, of course, shoot in JPEG. I'll be showing two images, two processings, one in JPEG and one in RAW. So let's go to this image. You Okay, this is one of the holy images that we took this year. Uh, First of all, we'll have to open it in Photoshop. So this is Adobe 2020. There was also another question whether you have to buy the Photoshop. Yes, it would be preferable, if it would be good that you buy, though it's costly, but you should buy your Photoshop. Well, so here you have your image. Okay, and then for the first thing that you do, you saw that I've imported this image. There are several other ways to import it to Photoshop, but well, I drag it down. Then the first thing that you do is Control J. You have another layer. So what happens is your background is
Your screen, Somen, your screen is stuck, I guess. We can't see. Can anybody see on?
No, the progression of what he's saying is not happening.
Yes.
Okay.
It's stuck at the.
Let's see. Wait. Okay.
We can see 3. Yeah. No. You will start sharing again.
Yeah. Share again, and
I think I have to share. Yes.
I think you have to open it in your Adobe and then share this.
Yes. Yeah. It's showing now. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Because initially I was in the folders.
Yeah.
So what I did was, I will show once more. What I did was I imported the image. So this is my image now. And then the first thing that I do is a Control J. That is, I take another layer. So the background layer is not hampered. So what I work now is on this layer, or I take multiple layers as I go on. Whenever I find that some layer has been erroneous, I can throw that layer out and I can restart my processing. So the first thing that I do is the first adjustment. There are 6 basic adjustments that I think everybody does and has to be done. The first is brightness and contrast. If you feel that your image is not bright enough, maybe you might increase your brightness a little bit, Because it's a portrait image, as has been mentioned so many times today, the point of focus should be on the eyes. So concentrate on the eyes, then you will take care of the rest of the image later on. But first and foremost, your eyes have to be sharp when you are taking the image, your eyes have to be sharp when you are editing the image. So your most concentration will be on the eyes. I think this is fair enough. Contrast, if you have a full frame camera, you can increase the contrast little more. Otherwise, if the crop censored camera, do not increase more than 5, because that will damage your image. So the first adjustment was brightness and contrast. Second, exposure. It's not necessary that you have to do all of these steps, whichever is necessary. Now in exposure, first the gamma correction. See whether it's improving your image or not. Yes, if you shift a little to the right side, your image becomes more active and the background gets more blurred, more dull, more dark. This is exactly what you want. You don't want your concentration to go more towards the background. Exposure, yes, a little more maybe. That's it. The third one, okay, the third. So I have done with brightness contrast, I've done with exposure. The third one is shadow and highlight. You can enhance your shadows, you can enhance your highlights with this. Again, it's not necessary that you have to tweak it. If at all it is necessary, then do it. Put your amount to 0, put your highlights to 0. Now slowly to your shadows to 0 and highlights to 0. Now slowly start increasing your shadows. Does it enhance your image? If not, do not go any further. Highlights, does it enhance your image? If not, don't go any further. The last one is match color. This is match color. If you feel that your color, you have to enhance your color a little more, then you can toy with the luminance. See if whether it's improving or not. Don't go too much, don't overdo it. Little bit, yes, because it's a picture of Holi, because there are bright colors, you might need a little bit of tweaking, you might love to enhance the colors. If it damages, don't go too further. Finish. I think this is a basic correction which does your image quite well. The next thing that you have to do, or ideally you should do, is before finishing off with your image is go to have a high pass. You go to filter, other, high pass. Why do you go for high pass? Before finishing the image, if you want the contrast to be a little better than what you have, you can go for high pass. Not much. You increase the radius to that amount of pixel where the lines are just visible. Like here, you can see this line, you can see these lines. Don't go more than that. Okay. And then coming to the layer palette, come to soft light. You can see the difference. This is a subtle difference. It has made the image subtly sharper. Again, if you are not happy with it, or if you feel that you have done too much, you can lower the opacity a little bit. And I think that's it. Your image is ready. Now you can convert it into JPEG and you are done. How do you convert? You just save your image, save in your computer, and you give a name. You save one in JPEG and one in Photoshop. That's it.
So, I mean, can you show both of them together, pre and post? That would be easier for
Yeah.
people to make out the difference.
Okay. I will. I think I have saved. Oh no. Uh, what has happened is I had just replaced it right now. Okay, so this is the image that I had just replaced. I
Different
should
colors.
have.
I mean, in the Lightroom, there is an option where you can show the pre-post.
Yeah, both.
No,
So I
I
don't.
can actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. This is here.
Hope I
I
don't.
think you can do it. See, this was the previous image. This is because can you see this now?
Yeah.
Can you see Photoshop? Okay. What is this? This was the background image that I had, and
Yeah.
this was the layer image, the first layer. Okay. So there's a subtle difference. What I should have done, or what again, if you want to have the previous image, then you just name it differently while saving. When I'm saving it, save as, the moment you name it differently, then the previous image will be saved.
Right.
Right.
The second, okay. So there is the other one is an NEF. NEF is the raw format. Now let's go for example, this one. I again bring the image here. So this is a raw image. I'm in Nikon cameras. It's in NEF format. So this image is. I felt that this was taken in France in Avignon. So I thought that this would be better if I go for a monochrome. So first of all, I just, as in Lightroom V, as Dr. Sumdat was saying here, I just do this and see whether it stands, whether it goes in monochrome or not. Okay, yeah, it goes quite well. Then the next thing that you do in raw correction is the temperature has to be, because it's a daylight, usually we go for a daylight temperature because it was taken during daylight. As we know, daylight is 5500. The tint has to be zero, always. Always the tint has to be zero. Now, if you feel that the temperature might be, you can tweak with this temperature a little bit considering your photo. Like for example, this has plenty of dark elements in it. So I might be lowering it a little more, but not much. Now, these are the excellent tools here: exposure, contrast, highlight, shadows, whites, and blacks. So one by one, I'll try to utilize them. I, I increase the exposure a little bit. Contrast, again, not much because this is a crop frame. It's not a full frame camera, not more than 5. Highlights. So here is my highlight. Here is this person walking along, and there's this highlight. I want the highlight to be enhanced, but not much. I do both. I go this way. I am going overboard. I'm going a little less. Here, I think the play of shadows will be more important. I'm handling the shadows a little more, whites a little less, blacks maybe this. Again, revisit the exposure once more. I think that will be fine. The next one is a more subtle correction. Whatever corrections I did in the first palette, I'm going to the second palette. Again, the highlights and darks and shadows. I might be playing with the highlight a little more. It again depends. Each and every step that I'm showing depends from photo to photo. You have to continuously watch what's happening now, and each image will be different than the other one. Okay.
Yeah.
And now here, though it's a monochrome, now this I find is very interesting. As you saw in my when I first took my photo here, when I imported the photo, it had a green tinge because it's almost a subaltern photo. It had a green tinge. So first I go to the green. I try to reduce that green as much as possible. See what's happening. See what's happening. Though it's a monochrome, all the green elements that was there, I am trying to suppress that green. I'm trying to neutralize that green. Also, the aqua was also there. There may be a very subtle correction. I don't, yeah, I don't think any of the other colors needed correction here. So now I import this image. I click on this, it opens in Photoshop. So this is a known format. Again, as I did before, I just do a Control J. I take another layer. So this is my layer now, and I follow all those steps that I showed before. That I
Yeah.
had shown. Yeah, brightness and contrast. Because here again maybe a little bit of correction. Okay, I'll go
Yeah.
towards exposure,
Very nice, Soman.
shadow highlight. See, yeah. So I don't need that. I don't need that. Buzz. I think that's enough. Okay, and most probably I don't need any other correction. I will just go for a high pass, other high pass. Just as I said before, when I find that the lines are just coming, I leave my image there and go for overlay. I think my image is done. If I'll just lessen the opacity a little more to find whether it's improving or not. That's it. The image is ready for export. So I save it as a JPEG image, and I give a name to it, maybe a different name, save. And whenever you save the image, always save in the highest amount, that is maximum quality. Okay. So that's my image. I think I'm done.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Soman. Those were the great tips for how to process the photograph in quickly in Photoshop. Any comments from Dr. Manish, Dr. Shobit? I think you can stop sharing your screen, Soman.
Yeah.
I think it's a complete chapter in itself. I'm
Yeah.
quite true. For me, I'm able to, though the layer concept is beautiful, but requires a lot of practice and more patience than Lightroom.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
I think we are all Lightroom users. So Shobit, Som, and me. So
Yeah.
Adobe is much more advanced.
Yeah, but I'm a diehard Photoshop
Yeah.
fan. Yeah,
No, that's
I
the
remember.
advanced version. Yeah.
If I may have my final bit, Lightroom and Photoshop work together very well. You're editing in Lightroom, you right click, you say open in Photoshop, it opens it in Photoshop. I do a few adjustments in Photoshop. The moment I close it, I don't even have to say save. I just click the cross, it closes. It will save an extra copy in the same place in Lightroom next to my original picture. So I find that combination very useful. 90% you can get away with Lightroom. Once in a while, you want to do something, like your high pass and cloning and stuff, which Lightroom won't do. And then you go to Photoshop and come back. And the current Adobe model is that you have this subscription where you get both Photoshop and Lightroom, and you pay a monthly rental for it. So you're getting both anyway, so you might as well delve into it if you feel like it.
Fine. So I think with this we come to the end of today's session. Final comments? Any final comments from all our panelists so that we can wind off? Dr. Shobit? Yeah.
It's been a lovely session, and I have enjoyed it a lot, sharing some experiences. So that's it, and it is always lovely to.
But one thing I wanted to know, like retinal surgeons, do they make a better photographer than anterior segment surgeons? Like you all are.
I feel so.
You work closer to macula, that's why. Okay, Dr. Manish. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a second passion to me, as I said, and it's always nice to talk about this whole aspect. And it's been interesting to see so many people have been interested in it. Even the monochrome entries have been quite varied and vast and fantastic work. So really enjoyed having this whole activity together. Thank you very much, Harsh.
Dr. Somdat.
Been a great experience, Harshul. I did learn at least something from Showman with Manish and Shobit. We talk a lot about this. So we probably know what each other do. But the entries were fantastic.
Yes,
The
yes.
entries were fantastic, and one must say that.
Yeah, and I think everybody is a winner. It's just that at this point of time, you like these
Yes.
photographs, but yeah, all those who have contributed, they are winners. Yes. So I'd like to thank Dr. Somin also for
Thank
sharing
you.
his tips with us, and I'd like to thank Antot Pharma, Mr. Nikhil Masurkar, for always supporting us and giving this platform to interact with all of you live. And I think with this session, we inspired a lot of our ophthalmic colleagues so that they can feel motivated and they can feel inspired to work hard to get stunning images like you people have got. Thank you very much and stay safe. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. Mr. Basil, Beslin.